Okay, so we're going to start in a elongated supported bridge. So what I want you to have is you're going to stand up in the beginning, face a wall spot, and have your bolster lengthwise in the center of your mat. And probably center if you're I guess I'd say a normal height, whatever that might be. It would probably be perfect. If you're a little on the shorter side, you can have your bolster closer to the wall, but we shall see. Okay, so take a stance on the side of the bolster to the back, okay? Because I want you to advance your circulation. You're going to have a rolled up blanket towards the wall. It could be pretty close to the wall, actually, for your calves, but the calves are back here at first. And I want you to take a leap here. You're going to reach your hands to the wall and keep in mind that part of the experience of some of these restorative angles is to create space, right? Focus on mapping the way gravity flows through our bodies and our bones, right? That's a big part, is how it flows through the bones. So when you have this reach and kind of trust with your feet so far back, of course, I can't see exactly how your feet are, so if you want them a little closer, that's okay. But see if you can encourage that sense of pushing the wall away, just like you would in downward dog, and the experience of the chest muscles reaching. Okay? Okay, now let the knees bend a little bit more. Let your head nod side to side. Slow it down with the head movement and just trust that feature of filling the ribs with your breath. Okay, gradually walk your feet a little closer, just small shuffles of the feet towards the wall. And then I want you to walk your hands up. You might not see all of my hand perspective, but walk the hands up the wall so there's less pressure on your wrists. Spread out the fingers and feel that stretch in the armpit chest. This might feel very nice in the upper back, wrapping around the armpit into the shoulders. Breathing. Chest expansion. Okay, take the final moment here with the hand touching the wall, where you just recognize this reach of the armpit through the ribs. This is a big part of our bridge pose, is this area, determining this to create openness. Okay, now lift your head towards the sky. Feel the palms pushing into the wall, coming into what would be a very mild upward dog. So my arms are straight, and I'm not bending the elbows. Okay, and walk the feet closer to the other end of your bolster, and then carefully use your wall or another chair to help yourself come down to sit on the bolster. And then I want you to scoot so you're at the edge of the short end of your bolster, closer to the wall. And you'll let your feet step to the wall. I like to use my blanket, kind of prop it so it's pushing in towards my Achilles tendon, so it's pretty low on the calf. Kind of smush it in there. And then I lower back. And as I lower, I'm going to scoot a little farther to the wall again. I want the bolster to be under the shoulder blades. Okay, so it takes some time. This might be getting up, getting down until you go, okay, I got my feet at the wall and the ribs are inflating. So for me, this bolster is a little too low. I'm going to take another moment and probably just push the bolster back and then fall into the position. Okay, make sure you've got everything on so you feel comfortable. Nothing's getting pulled the wrong way. Before you add any other props to this, be sure that your feet maybe lightly touch the wall. But what's really important is this rib area really extending. If the back is feeling kind of sore, you can walk the feet towards your seat and bend the knees, of course, and stay here, or let the knees rest inwards to each other. Okay, but the key is the bolster under your spine and supporting the ribs opening. Okay, add your sand. So grab a hold of some weight. And again, if you feel too far back and your shoulders are on the floor, come back up and reset. It's going to be useful to give yourself a few times if it's not feeling like this bolster is high enough. So I'm going to add the sand to my upper thigh lids. Okay, or you could send the sand right across the front rim of the pelvis. Right, it would be below navel. And then let the arms, as they open out, this is interesting where you can feel the length of the neck. So instead of trying to push my chin towards my chest, I'm just going to use my two fingers and just slide them so inside from the ear to the side of the neck, and just give that some pull. This is kind of a tricky area to get length without any damaging motion. Okay, and then feeling where your spine is elevated and it's centering back. It's all the spine, and the arms are open. The feet lightly touch the wall, that's fine. In fact, that awareness of just lightly pushing into the wall might be useful for how you create the openness in the chest, because that's what helps our back muscles relax, because they're overly stretched. Most of us round our back more than open the chest. So start to refresh these upper respiratory muscles with breathing through the nose and emptying out, feeling the movement of the in and the out breath. And simply trusting that as you scan your body in the shape, you can certainly change how you're setting on your bolster. And if you feel like there's some discomfort, you can move your feet wider. That usually makes it easier on your back. Not to worry about how it looks, right? It's how it feels, that the order of things in the shape is to really influence our circulation and the breathing muscles. Just start here. Now feel when the arms slide a little bit down, right? If you've got some clutter in the side yard, just kind of shift it a little bit, and feel the shoulder blades try to roll in towards the spine. Even if you slide a little bit off the bolster, but just feel if you have the capacity to work on that kind of wiring in your body, right? Especially on your back. Kind of an odd place to move your shoulders towards your spine. You're lying on your back. It makes sense when you're sitting up that you should do that, but this gives us that honest orientation of openness in the upper chest area, doesn't it? And I don't want you to try to breathe in the upper chest. Try to let the breath move into the rib movement, and then more importantly, down to the lower abdominals. Okay, so what we're going to suggest coming up here is slide the sand off of the thighs. It's an easy reach, okay? And then walk the feet in so that the feet are close to the short end of the bolster. Bring the soles of the feet together, the knees apart in cobbler's pose. If you just happen to be really close to the bolster with your feet and you can bring them up on top, you can try that. It's a little deeper stretch, but I find what's easier for my knees is what's best for me. So if the feet on the ground, you will still feel probably a lower inner line of pressure on your adductor, which is nice to feel. If I go high on the bolster, it's okay on my knees, but it's a different pulley in my lymph here in the adductor. So I want to find what works for me in the moment, what feels fine. Okay, so we're going to be working on lower abdominal kind of strength and tone for the abdominal organs coming up. So instead of trying to suck the belly in, you're actually doing the opposite to support strengthening the diaphragm. So as I in-breath, it certainly makes sense to let the diaphragmatic motion go down to the abdominal organs, not grip my belly in. And since I'm on my back, it's kind of vulnerable, right, to operate that. So slide the feet apart. That's a temporary moment there. The bottoms of the feet on the ground, and then let your weight fall back into the heels. And you might just lightly feel the top of the spine area kind of seal, like it's placing pressure down into that area. There's a little bit of shoulder kind of weight. Lift up the hips, reach down to your bolster and turn it so it's horizontal. If your back is a little worried, walk your feet farther out, kind of a duck-like, right? And then scoot your bolster in pretty high into the back of the pelvis. And then I like to let the knees rock side to side, kind of windshield wiper, so I can get my buttock flesh to press. I mean, this is a good one to try to get the buttock flesh to kind of stretch across. Come on, rear flesh, go. All right. And then when you lift up the feet, just let the legs kick up to the ceiling. And as you orient the bolster underneath you, it might be a little bit tilted. Who knows? Maybe it's not exactly horizontal, but you want to feel that, okay, the space behind my heart is centering. The space below is lifted and in tune to the abdominal muscles. Okay. Now let's bend the left knee and give this a try. You're going to hook the right ankle to the left knee and see if you can just keep the knees moving towards the chest. If it doesn't work out with this variation, you definitely have an option. The option would be to put your left foot on the floor, which I kind of like too, because I can feel how this adductor motion, and again, you can adjust your bolster. It's a good way to figure out how to be on my bolster. Okay, but if the foot is off the ground, see what happens without trying to clutch onto the leg. Maybe your hands center on the ribs. Maybe the arms are out to the side, but take a moment when the knees are moving towards your chest. Will they get there? Probably not. Hopefully they're not going to smush onto your upper torso area or your ribs or chest, but you want to feel the beginnings into a pelvis, hip, pelvic floor opportunity here. Okay. All right, take a block. Let's see. You've got a couple of them, I suspect. This is a normal prop duo that we have as blocks. Okay. So put them besides your bolster at the short end of your bolster. I would put them up to the second setting and shift them a little bit besides it so they're about, maybe not quite a block's width away from your bolster edge. And you're going to uncross to that right foot and just bring both knees over to that left side to the block. Okay. Now my knees aren't stacked perfectly because it just won't work like that with my pelvis, but I can feel when the legs are together. And I'm going to ask you to try taking your sand to the outer right thigh, upper outer. It could be close to the knee, but it's for the bones perspective today. I want you to have it on the hip. And if you don't have a sandbag, no worries. Any of these sequences apply with or without. It's just an extra prop. So I position it on that outer border, and it does connect a little to glutes, but I want you to get a feeling here that it's weight on the hip. The right arm is just open to the right side, not over the side of your head or behind you, but just to the right, and let your head turn to the right if it's comfortable. If you want your head to be center or to the left, go for it. But feel the openness of that right arm. See if you can let the left shoulder kind of just hibernate a little bit. Let it just kind of drop down. close to your left side of the torso, like that area is hunkered down. Left side is in hibernation. Right side is in circulation. So relax your left hand maybe. Feel the right arm open. And then let the breath take over, using your breath as a stretching tool. You might slowly roll your head to the right and just feeling kind of the nooks and crannies in there. Okay, now as we move the weight off of the hip bone, okay, I want you to come back in center and slide the sand to your torso center and take a moment, just let the knees center side to side, let them walk, go back and forth, side to side, put the sand to the side and feeling the arms overhead, if that's possible for your shoulders. If it's not, just pass, you can pose pass. Knees stretch side to side, but keep them in pretty active motion so that the waist gets a stretch. Now just think if you were trying to go side stage, you would try to eke out a little bit more waist movement. Okay? All right, now for change on this side, let's shift it a little bit. We're going to lower the right foot down and then cross the left ankle to the right knee. The left thigh kind of goes with gravity out. This could be an opportunity for you to reflect on the first side or go back to the first side and see how different it might be or what's the same. There may be parts of the pelvi kind of release the same, but maybe the joint structure is a little different on the ankle or the knee as far as how it grips. So when I lift up, so here's what's interesting is when I give myself the instruction, knees towards chest, I tend to move my left thigh in, but that's my habit because my mind said knee in. So I want you to move the tailbone like you're trying to scoop the tailbone under like a pelvic tilt, even though you're already in a pelvic tilt with the bolster, and lift the right heel. Use your lower abdominals. If you were to touch into that lower abdominal way below the belly button, right, you could feel there's a little bit of interaction there, a little bit of tone. If you have scar tissue, you can definitely notice the grip. So you want to scoop the tailbone under. It's hard to do. And then lift up the leg. If your hip flexors are getting kind of angry, just bend through the knee. Right, well, they're bending for certain, right? They have no choice, but hip flexion, right? Get a feeling of that hip flexion on the right leg. And then feel the arms either behind you on this side or out to the side. You can play with it, but feel when you're guiding your knees towards the chest. There's such a temptation on this one to hug the back of my leg and pull. It's beyond that right now. I just feel like it would serve me better, but I'm going to work with my natural abilities without using my upper extremity. So as I feel that motion in, let gravity help you feel that reach. The left hip is going to receive. And then see if you can keep the knees scooping in and then uncross through that left leg and then bring the knees over to the right side to your block. If the block is not over there, get one. And use a block under the knee, the right knee on the right side, and then add your sand. I would try to work with that reach of the arm first, the reach of the waist, the movement across the outer band of the left hip, and then add your sand to that left side. And you could push it so it's definitely centering on the leg itself, but when you pull the sandbag to the right, you might feel a little bit of QL stretch to the side of the spine on that left side, bordering towards the really over towards the obliques a little bit. So when I let the sand just be. Okay. It's tempting to kind of keep rigging it up to pull. So sometimes you'll have it closer under your hip bone. Just as it's all individual. But as the left arm opens out and spreads chest, you can let your head center. Just feel what's connected right now for you with the breath. So if that brings you to turn your head, or it keeps you right in the middle, breathing. It only helps. Especially when we're trusting some different variations for the hips. If there's any discomfort in the neck or the upper back area, see if you can spread out the chest, kind of sort out areas that are in the opposite of the floor to release and expand. And now here's one where movement of the tail doesn't really work, right? You can't really do cat-cow here. We can't sort that out. So what you can sort out is the move of the ribs down towards the hip flexor, the left side, the left leg. So I want you to kind of move into an angle with that. So you're going to reach for the sand, and we're going to keep it on the left leg. We're just going to slide it to the front of it. So what I think might work out best is to bring the heels, your feet towards your buttock, and then bring the knees back up. Now you got a little bit of weight training. Slide the sand to the top of the left thigh. Let the left leg lower straight down, maybe the blanket's there. I'm going to turn the sandbag so it's lengthwise on my leg and kind of orient my waist so it feels like we can kind of centerish. I'm centerish. Okay. Now, with my body, I want to make sure that the space behind the heart is not on the bolster. So there's got to be some things that are not all the way up there. So my rear is not on the floor on the other side of the bolster, right? It's still up. So get a hold of your belt and take the belt, make sure that it's buckled up. You got a big loop, it's all connected. And you're going to do the best you can to reach it to your foot. Maybe you need to do more work on getting the knee closer. But reach the belt to your foot, and as you lift up that right leg, and the foot is being held by the belt. So just consider that for a little bit. I like to get a hold of my foot and kind of wobble it a little bit side to side. You get a little bit of movement without my foot doing the movement. I'm just holding the belt. Kind of a puppet foot. Okay, so see what you can do with that, especially since you're not standing on the thing right now. You're not standing on the thing, the foot. Thank goodness it's not stood on. So as I hold, I try to bring the belt so it feels like, okay, the heel is lifting a little bit. And I'm going to try brain float. So I'm going to scoop up the back of my head with the belt. I kind of know the measurement for me is usually the belt loop goes to the crown of my head easily. That's a good measurement for me, but it might be too much. So as I pull the belt as far back as the leg will take it, okay, then I lift up my head and slide it. So I just let the approach of the belt behind my head be where it's pretty casual. So it doesn't need to be very far down. It's definitely not under my neck, but it contributes to the stretch of the neck, doesn't it? Okay, so if it feels like way too much hamstring negotiation going on, you can either loosen the belt or bend the knee. They're both good. Yeah, I'm going to bring my hands to my right thigh, the upper thigh, right, so my thumb right at the connection of what I think of. Here's my thigh and here's my pelvis. And just try to get that to kind of stretch outwards and move the sand down that left thigh a little bit. Okay, and so I can really feel the dominant hamstring on this one. The other hamstring's asleep. Okay, take a little bit of a micro bend, right? And kind of notice just the form of the knee. So part of it's how the foot is moving. It's all integrated here. Okay. And then start where you can really feel behind the knee, all the way to the attachment of the hamstring. Should really feel this interesting pull. So the upper back of the leg, some of us will feel everything, calf, everything. So you might bring your hands behind your head and hold on to the elbows in a elbow crisscross. Could be kind of nice to do. If I can get my arms to touch the ground, it would be lovely, but they have a ways to go, I think, to fully relax. Okay, so remember, micro bend, it might go back to hyperextend, so a little micro bend. You can move your belt towards your heel or the ball of the foot if you don't like where it's at. Give it a few more breaths. Let your head lean back into the belt. If you don't feel safe with the belt, you can always hold the back of your head with the belt. If you don't want the belt around your head, you can scoop it up with your hands going to the side of your head and then slide the belt off and then reach back overhead with it. That works pretty nice. It gets me more length in parts of the bone. So let's all switch sides by doing that so we know how to. So I slide the hands to the side of my head, right to the temples, and then to the side of my ears. And then I push and let my head rest on the blanket. It's kind of nice to get that reassuring reach through the arms. Yeah, and let the leg motion make circles. Yeah, get confused a little bit. So the arms are back and they're moving with the leg being kind of dominating that movement. So feel from the leg, feel for the leg. Everything's important to get you around, but legs are pretty nice to have. Okay. All right, now bending through the elbows. So I'm trying to bring my elbows close to each other. This is a nice one. So the thumbs are reaching back. The belt is at the webbing of the index and the thumbs. My elbows are trying to go together. Okay, now bend through the right knee. So there's resistance. Elbows close. If it doesn't work for your arm connection, that's okay. Push back with the hands. Push with the right foot. Strengthen through the back of the right leg. Push. Elbows together. Peekaboo between them, I'm sure, to the knee. Okay, now when you switch sides, I want you to just use the left hand to hold the belt and cross the right leg over to the left for the moment. Just the sand's gonna probably be convinced it's not important anymore. You might be able to get it off of the leg, but mine's gonna hold it on for dear life here. We'll see what happens. Come back up. Sand is off. Okay, left foot up, bring both feet to a wide stance. Grab your sandbag, just kind of pull it up to your belly. Okay. I think these sandbags would feel lighter, huh? After some time. Okay, so push out with your feet. If you don't like your sand on your belly, you don't have to have it there. You can put it somewhere else. But using that feeling of when you inhale, that the movement of the sand is from the diaphragm, right? Moving, even though you might think it's my abdominals. It's your primary respiratory. Okay. All right, so let's get a feel. When we switch sides, maybe tap into the sensation at the back of the legs. There might be just a little bit more openness on the right leg. It might just be small, okay, but it feels a little different circulation. The adductors, a little bit of flushing, okay, the draining of the lymph. So as I bend the knees, I'm going to slide the feet together and let the right leg lower down. And then as my sand is mobilized via my hands pushing it down on top of the right thigh, just feel, again, do I need this blanket? Is it too low? That might be a concern on this one, actually, huh? You could fold it one more time. I got kind of used to that little blanket. It was probably a good thing for my neck. So you decide. Maybe too bold. Okay. All right, back to that. So hands holding the belt, pull, and then see if you can maybe use the belt. Oh, I have my foot doing it to wiggle the foot. Lots of bones in there. And maybe the belt's in the center where you can get the most wiggle room. Like you're holding your foot, and I mean, I know you can't imagine it not being connected to your, just to how you operate, but just kind of moving around like it's a puppet here. Okay, and after you puppeteer for a bit, then you'll take your belt, you'll decide, do I want to reach back with it? Strong thumbs. Or do I want to bring the belt to a little bit above the occiput, so the shelf at the back of your head, maybe a little bit above that. Okay, seems like there's two different styles on this one where people are content. It's either right at the occiput. There's just a few that really find that they can work with that. And then most seem to be just above. Yeah, it's going to be one or the other. Now, you might bring the left hand to the left upper thigh, and especially when everything's kind of draining, right? The circulation, the lymph in the inner leg pit, drainage, it's going back to the heart. When we get upside down, right, we activate the baroreceptors. They're at the heart. There's a couple here in my throat. So that's what lowers the heart rate and the blood pressure. Yeah, there's some really interesting images of how that works, but I find this to be good stuff. So leg upside down, even if it's one leg that you can do, not both, this is still good. Sand is supporting my right hip reaching down. And you might let your eyes close. And just go for feeling, letting your head rest back into the belt. Now, the likelihood of the second side being a little different is probably true. So how your brain rests back into the belt might be not quite the same. You might find one side you drop back easier than the other. One side's kind of held up. So feel what's going to be courteous to supporting your nervous system. If you're kind of all, whacked out on this side, it's just too much shakiness, anything like that, it might serve you well to not have the belt under your head. You might find, oh, it's a little shaky, this hamstring's having some troubles. Maybe you bring the hands to hold the belt overhead. If it's not hamstring trouble, then you can have the belt behind your head, arms down or arms out, or arms straight open from the heart. Let the weight of your brain relax back. Breathing. And feel the difference between the circulation of the breath lower in the front body. So you can feel ribs, but you might feel very low in the ribs and the abdomen lifting and lowering. That's possibly because you're stretching the neck and your cervical spine has a little bit of pull. And if your head is farther back, if you're on the blanket, your hands are holding the belt, right? It's going to feel different with your breathing. But take these moments where you feel the two things, right? The breathing component and also the right hip flexor, the quadricep relaxing. Feel the quad release. Okay, now hands are going to all go to the inside of the belt, tracking besides your brain. And then as you reach back with your thenar web space between your thumb and your index, You're just going to let your head lower down and then slide the belt off. Do it just appropriately so your head can descend and your arms can reach back, not ascend, and not rescend, but reach back. We'll find an interesting way to say that someday. Not today. Okay. So with that motion, the left leg might go, oh, I can be straight. I can extend. Enough on the hamstring, right? Let the left foot push forward. Right hand reaches up. Now, if you like that circling action, go with that. I like to vary it a little bit. Is the connection into the hip. And then as I cross the left leg to the right side, sand might go faster on one side than the other. You might have something blocking your way. So hold on to the belt with the right hand, find the elbow lowering down. Having the hips up this long is definitely interesting, right, for the circulation right now. So if your sinuses are clear, this is good, but if they're not, this can be a lot of work. So be grateful if they're clear. Okay, now bend the left knee and let's just slip off the belt. That's enough of the belt for now. I want you to have your ball and we're just going to simply move it so the knees are going to squeeze the ball between them. You could have your block if you don't have a ball, that would be okay. The ball's nice to have so I can actually squeeze and release. Okay, now keep the legs in that movement bending. And I want you to bring the knees to your chest, squeeze the ball, and then you're going to push the bolster away from underneath your back. It might touch on that blanket. I know that blanket's down there, I think. So if you find it shoves against a blanket, the blanket's pretty easy to push. Might be harder to push than a bolster though, I suppose. So I want to make sure my bolster is horizontal, straight across my mat. My feet push onto it. Once my heels push into the bolster, I'm going to squeeze the ball. So make sure it's in a pretty good spot. There's usually a sweet spot where the ball can be between the knees and you can actually feel the inner thighs work. Okay. This is a good one. I'll probably squeeze the ball and tap the legs, right? Getting some extra circulation bonus. Circulation bonus. Okay. So try to get the hands so that they are at the center of the thigh. You're going to be using the heel of your hand. This is kind of a different way to use the heel because, you know, we're not usually on our backs using the heel of our hands very much. It's usually another direction. So I'm going to take my blanket, fold it once more. This feels better on where I'm going with this. Actually, wait, I take that back. I'll be in trouble if that's shown. So I have the blanket flat. Take it back. Error. Okay, so hands on center of thigh. In the next couple poses, we'll get there. We're going to lift the hips. Now, feel how the arms have their reach to the legs. Right? One time they were bent, and now they're extending. So, you know, keep this basic nature of I'm trying to get you two flexors to reach. And then the tailbone, right? It's kind of in a neutral position, really. It's hard to spike the movement of the tail. So I want you to get some fluidity. So lift and lower through the spine. And just be curious, right? Do you put your hands on your legs to help you get that lift? Do you have your hands on the floor? Do you have your elbows on the floor, hands up, robot arms? Yeah, I kind of like this version. So when I lift up the hips, I squeeze the ball just a mild amount, and then I make the robot arms, trying to keep the ribs lifting as well. And then when I lower down, my hands lower down. See, this way my arms can go down at the same time that my pelvis does, or actually sooner. If my arms go overhead and then down, you know what goes down first, right, is the hips so much faster, right? So having this opportunity might be good for you for just trying it out today. Okay, so take a few more times of lifting the hips, squeezing the ball. and then lowering down. Take the focus that you're not squeezing the ball when you lower the pelvis. No squeezing, just the mildest amount so you don't lose it. So inhale, squeeze, lifting. Okay, you don't have to move your arms if you don't want to. It's kind of all about getting circulation through my spine. Okay, now how do we add to that? So we'll bring the knees to the chest, to the full spine loop. Okay, and as I lower my feet back to the bolster, I'm going to inhale, lift the hips up, squeeze the ball. I'm going to let my arms be pretty passive. And then as I exhale, spine down and knees to the chest. Just give it a try. Be a little creative and kind of comfortable with the creativity. So when I squeeze the ball and I inhale, my focus is letting the abdominals just gently lift. It's kind of challenging to do all those things. And then as I exhale and lower down, the diaphragm moves up towards the heart, spine tracks down, and the knees go towards the chest. That moment right there is a little challenging. Okay, so let's do a pretty plain one. Let's get rid of the ball, because that's one less thing to have to deal with. We'll take a block on each side of the pelvis and have the blocks at the second setting. You might be one that can go high up on the block, but you don't need to overdo it here for the pelvic floor. I don't want you to do such a lifted bridge. Just let your feet be on the bolster. That you're kind of losing out on this pelvic floor engagement. Some of us get, I get motivated too, like, oh, I'm going to go with the block as high as I can and I can still do it or something like that. But then it's sort of really dormant in I don't really feel any integration. So I'm losing out on circulation. So that's not worth it. So when I push down into the feet, I'm going to use my arms a little bit here because arms are definitely helpful. So my elbows are close to the sides, not so close in that I'm proving anything, but they're down by the sides of so I want the elbows. So think about arms are reaching, right? This is what they do. They reach for things, but feel that the upper back area, the sides of the spine, the upper back area are engaging. So I push down to my elbows. Okay. And now I'm going to move down to my heels. So I'm pushing and then scoop the tailbone under to get the hips to lift. That worked out actually for me. That was kind of a little bit of an epiphany. So elbows down, scoop, and then I feel like oh, I've got some lift. Got some lift in my hips. Okay, now get those blocks and push them into each other. It works out. Sometimes you get enough lift, you don't have to oomph anymore. You just already have enough lift. No more oomph. Okay. So make sure the blocks are pretty much right beside each other. One is not too high. And you do want to push them up high enough so it feels like if they're at the lumbar spine, right? They're not in your ribs at all. No rib blocking. So rest on the blocks. So good. Okay. So feel that lower arch in the ribs. That's what helps strengthen the abdominals. And then we'll just bring the one leg up at a time. So feel that lift, or maybe you're not sure if you do in the abdominal muscles. And then activate the movement of the breath. Kind of what the class has been all about so far as abdominals, huh? In a funny way, right? Not in a way where you're overly hip flexing. You're working with the abdominals through inversions. Okay? Now you can feel some of us have a tendency that the big toes really push in, and then our knees have this kind of interesting angle. So see if you can just flex your feet, arch the spine. Okay, that's very arched. Elbows by the sides, so you're in almost that kind of shoulder standish feeling. My shoulders can't standish. Okay, so the arms reach down. I know it's hard to feel your upper arm strength here. So the arms are down, the shoulders are kind of rolling in towards the spine. Rooting for my shoulders. Okay, now feeling the separation here, there's two legs, right? If we're lucky, there's two. Lucky. Two lucky legs. So with that lift, I want you to get a feeling of the shoulders back and down. Okay, and if this blanket is too much height, this is the one where you could go without a blanket. Okay, now bring the legs as close as they'll go, like you've got a uni leg. Avoid having the feet turn out, right? Tricky. I know many of us are going to find that is tough. So it's like the inner bone of the knee, you want to move that closer together. So the inside kind of vine of the thighs, that lymph drain work, is if you're trying to stretch the adductors to each other. They just don't do that very much, right? This kind of way, right? They're apart from each other and they are influenced by posture, right? So when I lower down, I want you to bend the knees because you can't lower everything because there's blocks there. Thank goodness for blocks. So when my knees bend, my ribs inflate up. I can feel that lower sternum lift. And then I want you to try, you're going to use your lower abdominals. You can go 1 foot at a time or both. So if you go 2, try to get the back of the pelvis to just gently arch. So don't worry about pressing into the blocks. Just let the arch happen. Go with what's natural, right? Arch happens. And then I lower down the soles of the feet. And they kind of feel like palms when they touch down after that pose. Foot palms. And then as I push down into the feet, I lift the hips up again and then slide the blocks up. So easy. Okay. Lower the spine. Yes, you're connecting all the way to the tail. And then just let the feet separate a little wider than hips distance on the bolster. And the knees are going to sway side to side. Okay. Okay, we're going to go back to abdominals, right? This might be a little bit interesting for the threading of the back muscles into the reach around the abdominal lower frame. Okay, so as you move okay, hands down by your hips, just let one leg at a time lift. And I want you to have, so you're not on your bolster, there's no bolster under your pelvis at all, or your feet, but just let the feet flex and have the palms press and lower the feet down, maybe to 60 degrees, from 90 to 60, no further. But lower them down a little bit and feel the arms almost as if you're trying to reach for the bolster with them. But you don't have to lift your brain up, just the hands are down, but keep reaching. Let the arms do a little bit of reach, right? Even if the hands are on the floor, bring the legs straight up, 90. Remember, flex the feet. That's one that I kind of forget to do. And then reach the legs a little bit down, press through the heels, even though there's nothing to push into. Inhale up, belly full, and exhale, reaching down, right? The diaphragm tone. And then one more time, just that time. As you lift back up, you're going to lower down, bending the knees. And I want you to take the bolster. In fact, just push it over to the right side of your mat. And let's take a crossover. What we're going to do, if your blanket's in the way, you might kind of nudge it. We're going to use it for side sage pretty soon. So have it near the wall, just to the side. But you're going to cross your left leg to the bolster. And I want you to get a nice, really good reach. This is going to be how we get towards side sage today. Very different way than we've done before. So actually hold for a second here. Get your ball if you've got it. Go onto your back again. I don't want us to forget this part. I'm the one that would forget it. Place the ball into the left buttock, okay? And massage into that left glute, okay? We'll do both at the same, next to each other here just to get a little bit of that glute kind of jostling, moving it side to side, gliding across the tissues. So feel how the weight goes into the ball and the movement across. Kind of interesting. I feel the ball probably, if you look at it, it's probably not moving very much. But you're moving across it. Okay, so put the ball to the right buttock. You can leave the bolster where it's at, no problem. It's side to side. You might find one side you have the capacity to kind of push your opposite hip farther behind you. Who knows? Maybe you're more flexible in that hip. And so you have a different way of massaging into it. But the ball, circulation on the ball, right, it helps to induce that stretch motion into the joint. So it's a good thing to use the therapy ball. It's going to kind of vary up your ways of circulation into your body, especially with some type of massage. Okay, now feel when you come back to taking the ball out. Now let the spine lengthen. Right leg is down, maybe it touches towards the wall, no problem. And now as you cross the left leg to the bolster, now you might bend the right knee and then see if you can adapt that ball to the base of the spine, right from the sacrum to the gluteal area, right? It might not be quite glute that you think of, but that gluteal fold. And then as you take your sand, place it across the outer left thigh. This has been really a strongly focused lower core, hip, pelvis set so far, huh? So have your sand across the leg. I like a more blanket on this one for sure, under my head. I don't like to have no blankets or very little. I like to push the blanket so that when I turn my head to the left, it's almost as if my ear is on the blanket. Okay, it's kind of difficult to get the stretch in the chest area sometimes. So take some time to adapt. Movement of the brain to the left. The ribs rotating. Breathing slow. And just consistently check in with how you connect to the props. It's clearly a leg situation on the bolster, but the front of the abdominal area can feel the same amount of movement as the back, the posterior core on this one. So just simply massaging in the organs with the breath. Okay, now we'll continue with that feel of the left hip. Okay, so what we'll do is just move the ball a little bit off to the left side of the mat. Slide the sand off the left thigh. And then when you roll onto the back, I want you to put that ball to that left buttock that you were just working. And just have the ball so it's it's kind of in from the greater trochanter. So think top thigh. And then I kind of roll it under the buttock. And then I'm just going to lean my knees to the left and massage into a little bit more of the lateral, kind of the glute border. It's like the glute medial border on that one. So just feel the knees swerve to the left side and just feel the attention to the awareness into that left glute. These areas can be kind of bound up if you're walking on treacherous surfaces. Has been feeling pretty free to move around, but you know, these areas do get kind of gripped up and cold and all that. What doesn't, you know, everything maybe. Okay, come back and center, take a full bring a motion of the knees to your chest, and then move the bolster to the left side. You can kick it over there. You can play with getting it on that left side. But here, as we move the knees into the chest, the bolster's on the left. I'm gonna let the knees squeeze in on their own without my arms tugging them in. I want to use my abdominals to get the reach. And then left leg lowers down. You can let it straighten, you can let it bend, but be guided by your pelvis. So it's like, I know you got a leg, but think about, okay, what if you didn't have that extremity below, and how would you move the pelvis? It's really interesting to study that, right, with others. So, well, you'd move a little, you'd use a lot of core. So move your hips to the right, and then let the right leg cross over to the bolster. Move the ball to tuck it to the base of the spine. And now you've got all this abdominal kind of freeway here, you could say. That's what my thought about it. It's an abdominal freeway. Okay, take a sandbag to the outer right thigh. Sandbags are great for this. And then as you stretch open the right arm, you could do a couple things, right? You could cross the left arm over the chest, hold the left elbow and stretch your deltoid. You could just let the arms flow freely. And as your head turns to the right, feel the broadness through the chest. Let this be a twist, right? So you do feel, especially some areas in the centerpiece of the body that they just feel kind of rigid, right? So this is a great opportunity for you to feel how your knee bends, the bottom leg, the top leg. Because the important part is that it's lovely to have extremities sometimes, right? To feel how it, but use them to help your core body. Use them to strengthen this middle, and mostly the organs, right? So I get reminded time and again by my teacher, the twists are for the organs. Your spine will take care of itself. It knows how to arch. The parts that arch, the parts that flex, do what they need to do in a twist. You don't have to tell them what to do. They know. They know better than you, right? They're going to do their motions in a twist wonderfully. But your work is on letting the movement of the breath really stretch the insides. And the arms could be where you feel comfortable. Maybe one arm's farther back, one arm's farther down to the torso. Up to you. But check in what's gripping, right? So, of course, my hip is feeling a grip because it's stretching it. But can I receive my breath? Relax on my out breath. Okay, now when your brain moves back to center, we'll take the ball out. And I want you to move the sand so that it's, well, let's see, you're going to move it over to the left side. Will be good prep. And then add the ball to the right buttock. So what's kind of funny about this one is you could put the ball at your buttock here, like touch the ball like you're kind of hitting your rear with the ball. And then you can roll on it and then move the knees to the right side. See all these fun things you can do with these props. If your bolster's in the way, I want you to at least observe. Push it towards the wall, that's where it's going. And then move across that side border of the glute. If this isn't kind of working for you, you can do things like reclining windshield wiper, reclining figure 4, which is reclining pigeon. I just like ideas where you're not always bending the knees in this deep fold to work the glutes. The reality is that you're walking around with the legs below you. So see what you can do to jostle the tissues and glide across them. You could do the same thing with the ball when you're standing up against a wall. And you could do whatever you need to do, read or whatever, and just kind of lightly massage into the glutes. It's a nice thing to do. You might even prefer it over this. Okay, now next time you get back to center, you're going to just roll to the left and cuddle over and push up. And we're at least a little bit higher now in our seats. Okay, so take your blanket from behind you You're going to move a little bit back from the wall, and I want you to add your bolster under your waist. So let's see, we got our bolster about center of our mat. Mine's not gonna be quite center because I'm short, but center-ish of your mat. And then get your blankets. These are other props you need, your ball and your sandbag. But you're gonna get your blankets so they're stacked up in a quarter fold duo. Quarter duo. Okay. So bolster, again, I think everyone's gonna want it center on their mat, probably. You're gonna wanna touch the wall on this one. So let's have the blankets so they're stacked up. Quarter fold double, okay? All right, let's do a little bit of movement here. So let's take a crawl pose first. Don't let your head be too close to the wall. I don't want anyone to hit their head on the wall. Could happen, huh? Okay, hands are between the bolster and the blankets, knees, hips distance. Move the spine through cat-cow, but feel that reach of your throat. So see if you can find that movement of the spine, spreading of the fingers, arching, and flexing, chin towards the chest. Okay, final few cat-cows. You decide if you're going to keep the stretch with the knees on the ground, right? You can lean back, you can have your hands lift up off of the ground for more of a child's pose back this way to stretch the armpit chest. And then some of us might push back into an inverted V, which seems to be downward dog. But there's no wall behind your feet, right? So this could be challenging. So try to spread through the balls of the feet. The heels lifting a little bit is just fine because this part of the body has been in restorative mode for a while. So activate through the calves, breathe, hands push the floor away. Take the feet a little bit closer towards each other. If you're inverting a bit here, feel that the hips are trying to lift. Good, now bend the knees, okay? And let your hips move a little bit side to side. Okay, don't demolish your knees by doing this, but feel just the hip movement side to side. And now we're gonna move our body onto the bolster. So you'll slide the left leg back, walk your hands to the left side of your mat, from your perspective right here, and then guide the right knee up to that left side, right, of the bolster, and then sit down on the ground, not on the bolster, and then add your ball to the inside of the left leg, and you're going to use the wall. So if you're not sure you're close enough, you can always scoot and kind of do a little test reach, but the sand is helpful on the side of my ribs, and my head is on my blankets. Okay. You might have to play a little bit with the ball, getting it in the right spot. And when the left arm reaches, just changing how our circulation has been in our throat and our upper respiratory is kind of a revelation on this one. It's like we've been on the back for a good hour. So now it's like, I can kind of recover from all that lymph draining. So the left hand reaches to the wall. If it's too much, you can bring the hand a little farther to the left, elbow bending, right? And if this reach to the wall is curiously challenging and you want to still reach, what you could do is you could put a bolster, another bolster here, or a big pillow that's pretty dense, and you could put that under your arm so you're not activating these upper arm bands, right? So if I have my hand like on something here, that might be easier. So it's up to you, but having the wall could be really good. Palm onto the wall, and then let your spine have its natural arch. Yeah, be with it for a few moments. Let the length come from the waist, the weight really grouping into the right hip. You know, those of us that are giving ourselves a little bit of the timing to feel the hand to the wall, feel what it's like to lower the left arm down on the side, right? So it's over the sand for some of us. And the interesting perspective of your shoulder and the weight of your head. Really trust letting that go into the blankets. You know, that might be the place that is pretty interesting, just to let the weight of your head go. Even if that's all you get to do till the end of the session, I just let my head, my brain rest down and use my focus on breathing into the body and expanding and centering. Good work. So now when we come out, we're going to just kind of roll gradually. We give ourselves an in-between horizontal chest opener. So I would encourage you to keep your blankets this high. Okay. And then just shove the sand away. And then feel how you can kind of counter spin through the ribs. Now, if I roll in the back of my head, I can do that, but then my legs are sort of challenged to move. I don't have that connection in my lumbar because it arches. So I can't really flex it here. So what I want you to do is roll to your right arm on the bolster and then come back. See, we're learning all these skills if we fall down, right? Okay. Okay, inevitable. Okay, find how the back muscles just naturally are responding, leaning back into the bolster. Be here, just the bolster underneath your mid to upper back. Hold the back of your head and lean back like you're about ready to do some sort of sit-up action. And as I lower my head back to the blanket, I've got to get my ribs to have that expansiveness, the elbows, armpits open. Okay, now you're going to roll to the left side. So you might find, oh, I can do this pretty good. I can roll my ribs when they're already in that expansiveness. But add your ball to the inside of the right leg. Take your time. And then you're going to place your sand on the side. Okay, so sand goes to the side, right side. I think this last time I had it more on my ribs, didn't I? Okay, yes, I did. You can feel that balance is happening now. And you know, there's a likelihood they're different shoulder sensations. There's very, very possible. So if the one that's on the ground is in a little bit of rehabilitation, just let it enjoy that release. If the one that's up is feeling it needs a little bit more consideration, you might have to lower it down or sweep it over to the left. Okay, remember your head doesn't have to look to the screen. You can let your head relax down on the left side. Just feeling where the weight of your right leg relaxes. I think the ball is great. If you don't have a ball, the block is fine under the inside of the knee. But it's nice to have the leg a little bit lifted at the knee part so it supports the hip. Just feeling that reach with the right arm, or actually the right side body, maybe not the arm going overhead, maybe it's on the side, but feel the breath stretching into that side V. Let your head relax, brain let go. You know, feel how the sides, this really nice way of reaching through the side body, of extending it. So when we come upside down next, I want you to feel that this whole side beam still receives that openness with the props. Okay, let's see how we can get into this. So I'm just going to move my sand over to the left. I like how we can link these poses in what they're doing for you, right? You get this lymph reach, the side circulation. Okay, so when you turn, you're going to twist to the left, and then you're going to move your blankets away from the wall, but push your bolster towards the wall. Take a moment here before it don't get stuck on the wall here. Before you come upside down, reach both hands to the bolster so you get a bit of twist here, through the ribs, a little bit of rotation. Now really nice arches happen here. And then turn to the back of your mat and go the other direction. Take that twist so the hands on height and try to get that little bit of rebound in the abdominals. Even though twists aren't for them, right? They're for the organs, but I guess to each his own, they think it's happening. Even though teachers convince us, huh? So push the bolster right against the wall, scoot yourself up to it, and then have a blanket. You know what I like to do? I revisit these sometimes, is I like the blanket lengthwise under my spine. I don't roll it up all the time, so I'll push a blanket back. I got my quarter full blanket next to my bolster in the center. It's right in the middle, so my bolster is against the wall, blanket flat. And then when I put my seat next to the wall, I'm on the edge of the bolster and then I swing the legs upside down. And sometimes I fall over the other side, but getting better at just nailing it. But you know, it's practice. It's good to be kind of imperfect about it and fall over too. So take a blanket. If you only are using one, that's fine. You can have one under your head. This one's a little tricky because you got your blanket. I mean, I'm short, so the blanket's, my lower blanket's under my head. You don't want to have it too high up under your brain. No tilting. And then take the sand to the soles of the feet. Yeah, this has been kind of a unique sequence. I like it. It's a very internal, extremely hibernative sequence for the inner body to have some good health and vitality. It's like, this is the soup sequence. Okay, so have a little space, just a little bit, so that you can see a little light between the knees. That's important. And then the arms relax down. If you happen to have more sand, you can add one across the rib intersection at the base of the sternum. You decide. But return to that circulation in the lower belly. Feel the in-breath expanding and the out-breath centering back towards the heart. This is a pure recognition of what inversions do for the heart. This is really obvious that the movement from the feet returns the blood back to the heart. So clear. So with weight on my feet, it's a great pose for the vascular system, the cardiovascular pose for sure. So keeping the heart gently open, letting it slow down and regenerate. Feel all that's underneath you is supporting that inner world. And what's above you, which is likely some feet here, is returning that circulation back, right, into that kind of vibrancy that comes from this centering practice. So breathe in the wisdom from the practice on all of them over the years. And just feel how the legs have that reliance on the wall. The wall is really good for this pose. You kind of bask in the circulation return, the recycling in the body. So once we've done a little bit of our inner recycling, we'll bend the knees, shift the feet off the wall, hinge at the hips a little deeper, knees towards chest, and take the sand off. If you decide to just toss it overhead, that's okay. But hug the back of the leg so that you're sometimes hugging maybe a little bit less than you need to do. You can kind of feel how the arms can be kind of massage tools, right? You can kind of stroke the back of the leg a little bit with the arms, kind of one at a time, one hamstring at a time. Different approach to the back of the leg, huh? Just kind of gliding across the tissues, okay? And then as you bend the knees a little bit, easier feet towards the wall, feel that there's a way of kind of scooping yourself to the side. I mean, just think of if you were going to be scooped up, right? You're going to try to get your back in that right amount of fold. Yeah, so you got to envision a little potato bug here. So go to the side, roll, and then push yourself on up. Even though potato bugs don't do that, huh? Take a crossing of your ankles or your shins. Find what works for the crossing. I like the blanket because then I try to cross at my shins more. Just it's a different influence. So spine, natural arch, bring your hands up. Enjoy the moment here of kind of rejoining in our practice, whether it's one that you are watching recorded or live. Feel the support from the practice. Let's take a deep breath in. And with exhalation, bowing into the space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste. Okay, thank you. Nice work. All right.
It was wonderful, Nicole.